Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. The post is titled, I, 25M, think my wife, 23F, is starting to resent me. The title says, I think my wife, let's call her Amy, hates me. We've been together since 2018 and married since 2022. We had twins last January, and since then, she has changed so much. When she and I first started going out, she was very clear that she never wanted children. She had a copper IUD in and said she intended to get her tubes removed once it expired. But the day came and she had the IUD removed and was told that they wouldn't allow her to get her tubes tied because she was too young. She asked me to get snipped, but I didn't have medical insurance at the time, so I couldn't afford to do so. A few months later, she said she changed her mind and wanted to try for children, so we did. She had 2 miscarriages before she got pregnant with our identical twin boys. I was extremely happy, and despite her being sick constantly, she seemed happy too. She gave birth when she was 32 weeks, and the boys spent 7 weeks in the NICU. My wife took this really hard. She constantly blamed herself because she worked up until she had to give birth and says that had she done the bed rest like her doctor suggested, our boys would have stayed in longer. She also beat herself up a lot over not being able to breastfeed. She never established a milk supply because she was so stressed after birth and ended up with some kind of infection and was told any milk she pumped after antibiotics would have needed to be dumped. After that point, she was extremely distant from me and our kids. While I was on paternity leave, I was the main caretaker of the boys. I changed all their diapers, fed them, bathed them, everything. I took them to all their doctor's appointments by myself, and my wife just lay in bed, completely shut out. My wife was supposed to start back up work remotely, but her job decided to not allow remote work. This sent her into a spiral because they ended up terminating her position. Without her working, we couldn't afford childcare, so she just stayed home all day with the boys. She didn't cook or clean and talked about how she hated being home all day and how she missed working. We fought constantly because I felt like it was unfair. I wanted to be home all day doing nothing. I wanted to be a stay-at-home dad, and she was taking it all for granted. Well, now the boys are a year old, and I feel like nothing has changed. She still just sits and stares blankly, barely talking to me or engaging with our boys. I constantly ask her to help around the house or to do literally anything besides sit and stare. She looks like she's lost 30 pounds since giving birth, and she's so pale. But whenever I mention anything to her, she just yells at me to leave her alone. Our sex life is almost non-existent, and when we are having sex, she just lies there, not making any sounds or moving. I feel like she hates me, hates our kids, and hates the life we've built. How do I talk to her? I am close to taking the boys and asking for a divorce because I am tired of talking to a wall. Edit/update. I wanted to jump on here and give clarification for the word choices I made while in the heat of the moment. I posted this right after an argument with my wife because I was just so hurt, angry, and confused. I said I wanted to be able to be a stay-at-home dad and do nothing all day. I worded it this way because many times, including yesterday, I have come home from work and my boys are in their cribs, wearing dirty diapers with rashes, while my wife is either sleeping or completely zoned out in the rocking chair. It has felt like she has done nothing all day, but it isn't true, and I know that. Are you completely unaware of postpartum depression is a question I was asked a lot. And the truth is, yes. I live in Texas where sex education doesn't really exist. I was never taught anything about pregnancy, labor and delivery, or the 4th trimester, postpartum. Doctors never gave us information on it. It was mentioned once in the beginning of her pregnancy by a doctor in passing, but I neglected to ask for clarification or do any research on my own. I also failed my wife by not bothering to Google her symptoms, which could have easily shown me postpartum depression. How did you let this go on for a year without asking for help or advice? This is not a good excuse, but I didn't know that this was a hormonal issue at all. I genuinely believed my wife was just being neglectful and emotionally distant because she hated me and hated being a mom. I work almost daily, usually 12-hour shifts on a construction site, so coming home to a messy house, fussy babies, and having to clean everything and make dinner just resulted in anger on my side. I let that frustration build rather than try to understand her. Do you have any friends or family who can help? Unfortunately, we don't. My mom is out of the picture and my father is dead. My wife's family was abusive to her growing up, and our friends abandoned us due to rumors my mom spread online, where she was telling everyone my wife had 2 abortions rather than 2 miscarriages. You have been having with her when she isn't emotionally involved. I should have added more details here, and I can see why a lot of people were angry at my comment about our sex life. I honestly thought it was important to add that it has been non-existent, and when we had sex, she was uninvolved. My wife after birth was the only one to initiate intimacy, and I believe now it was out of guilt. We haven't had sex in months because I don't say yes anymore and I don't ask for it. I shouldn't have said yes previously, and I know it was wrong of me. Do you even love your wife? Of course, I love her. I posted this out of anger and frustration because I believed that it was she who didn't love me anymore, and I thought I was the main problem. I made it all about me when it isn't me at all. It's this disgusting and awful disorder that comes after giving birth. I was just so angry because I had asked her to get help so many times, and she had either yelled at me to leave her alone or just stayed quiet. About 5 days later, OP provided us with an update. Edit, thank you everyone for all of the support for my wife and me. We received so many messages with resources and guides for navigating through this rough course in our lives, and I will forever be grateful that I posted on this subreddit. Everyone helped me open my eyes to everything that was going on, things I never would have even considered had I not come here for help. My wife watches Too Hot Takes sometimes, and I usually listen with her while I do the dishes or sweep mop. I thought that maybe this subreddit would be a great go-to for advice on my marriage because on Reddit and in the YouTube comments, you all are so brutally honest and to the point, and I knew I needed that to get this sorted. You all were so quick to point out my wife's postpartum depression and directed me in ways that I have fallen short with my wife. Thank you everyone for the constructive criticism and the honesty. I would not have been able to get to this point of reality if I had been coddled and pampered. My wife actually laughed for the first time today when our boys started laughing at the word booty. Boys will be boys, haha. It was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard, and I haven't gotten to listen to it in so long. She seems to be in much better spirits, which I will keep an eye on, as I know sometimes that can be a red flag for suicidal ideation or intentions. My wife has been trying to be more honest with me about how she is feeling in the moment, and we have her established with group therapy starting Monday with orientation. I wish I could say thank you to everyone personally and individually for hopefully helping us save our marriage and potentially for saving my wife's life. I genuinely couldn't have done it without this subreddit. Thank you, Too Hot Takes, for having such a huge and wonderful platform where people can come and receive advice and honesty. It's a beautiful thing you have here. I'm going to go and start making my wife's favorite dinner and watch the Hunger Games for a movie marathon, something we haven't done in over a year. This will hopefully be my last update and last post in this subreddit if everything goes well. Thank you. End of edit. It's been a day or so since I added an update on my original post, but I thought this update needed its own post if it's allowed. I scrolled through this subreddit to see how others posted their updates and saw a few. Hopefully this is allowed. So after begging for several days, my wife finally gave in and agreed to online therapy. We picked a program we thought would benefit her best and got it situated. She has an intake phone call tomorrow that will organize her hours, what group she is assigned to, and who her personal therapist is. It's an intensive outpatient group therapy program that lasts about 12 weeks. I have also reduced my hours at work by request, asking for 6 hours on shift during the weekdays, and I am on call during weekends for callouts. It is temporary until my wife is better. I have also hired cleaning services to come weekly. She is the wife of a co-worker of mine, and she has 3 kids of her own. I spoke to her directly, and she offered to help my wife with the boys if my wife ever asked for help with no extra charge. My wife and I are openly discussing breaking up temporarily. During our discussion last night, my wife opened up about how she hasn't been happy and how she has had an ongoing online affair with someone. I don't blame her for the affair. I can't imagine how alone she has felt this last year with me working constantly and always putting the boys first. She texted him in front of me saying it was over, that she wanted to prioritize our marriage and her mental health, and then blocked him on every platform she had him added on, which gave me a lot of reassurance. My wife was the one who suggested a temporary breakup. I don't think it would be appropriate given her mental health at the moment, and I asked that we just work on her getting better before discussing any marriage issues we have. She also opened up to me and let me know she has been self-harming and showed me where, and it's awful. I had no words to say except to apologize profusely for my negligence. I didn't notice anything for months. She said she started hurting herself after we stopped being intimate. She didn't have a reason why. Once she is halfway through her outpatient program, we decided that's when we will start marriage counseling, so she has time to develop some healthy coping mechanisms. We know there is a chance that marriage counseling could bring out a lot of the worst in us as individuals, and we wanted her to be as prepared as possible while still getting individual help in her program. I will also be starting individual therapy once marriage counseling is set up, so I have a healthy outlet. Not the update I wanted to provide, but I hope that in the future I can give a better one. I'm honestly just glad my wife agreed to therapy and is willing to work things out with us together. I will never be able to make up for the last 12 months I haven't been by her side, but I will try for the rest of my life with her to make amends for it. I'm honestly pretty shocked that OP didn't suspect that his wife had PPD, and it's not my place to say, but I don't think being so relaxed about her having an affair is the quote-unquote right reaction. I'm also not a huge fan of OP blaming himself for his wife harming herself. I understand that he loves and cares for her, but it's not healthy to confuse that love with enabling. Again, maybe it's not my place to say, but I don't think depression is an excuse to have an affair, regardless if it's over or not. The fact that she wants to take some time away from OP after an affair makes me think that this relationship is chalked. It's over. I want to make it clear that I respect OP for being a loving partner, but again, all of this really feels like enabling. The couple needs therapy ASAP, especially the wife. After writing that, I feel that I may have come across as rather harsh on OP's wife. PPD is a shitty thing, and based on what I heard, it can last for years. It's okay to take time to yourself. It's okay to spend an entire day crying, but she's an adult. At some point, she needs to step up as not only a wife, but as a parent as well. OP gave us examples such as his wife leaving one of their kids in a soiled diaper all day. Neglecting your kids like that is straight up not okay. I don't care how depressed you are. User Purple Gimp said, I remember your original post, so I'm super glad to see that you've stepped up to make sure your wife gets the support she desperately needs. Just understand that through her healing process, she may take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, which includes how she feels about your marriage. Just keep being patient with her. I spent my first 31 years in Texas, so I totally get how backwards things are there still in many ways, which ultimately boils down to a lack of education in a lot of places when it comes to things like PPD. There's a huge Southern societal pressure on women to be the perfect moms and wives without complaint. I often think about Andrea Yates from Houston, who had severe postpartum psychosis after their 4th child, with her husband ignoring the doctor's strong recommendation that she never get pregnant again because of the certainty of another postpartum psychotic break. But she got pregnant a 5th time because her husband felt like it was God's plan for them to have as many children as nature allowed, which ultimately led to yet another postpartum psychotic break and the horrific murder of her 5 children. He ignored all the signs and every medical expert who tried to warn them, and like many traditional Southern wives and mothers, Andrea also felt like it was her duty to procreate and serve God's will. It was a terrible case, and the societal pressure placed on Andrea to be perfect and carry out God's plan didn't include any room for messy things like PPD or schizophrenia. I can't say all that much has changed there, as evidenced by your wife's friends cutting her out of their lives because her mom claimed her miscarriages were in fact abortions. There's still so much judgment and so little compassion and grace for women struggling to conceive or for women who struggle after they conceive. I've never regretted leaving the state 20 years ago, and it's been my experience that healthcare and attitudes surrounding mental health are light years ahead of Texas here in the Pacific Northwest. Nowhere is perfect, but it's so nice not to feel the same judgment here. Your wife definitely needs friends, and I know it's really tough to conjure them out of thin air right now, but just understand that the isolation she's been experiencing most likely directly relates to her need to self-harm. It's really good that you're trying to get her out of the house more and bringing in someone kind to help her around the house who can also hopefully try to lend some female companionship will definitely help too. You're also correct to gently suggest that you stay in the home for now. She shouldn't be alone for multiple reasons, and I hope you can talk to her psychiatrist about that situation and get their opinion. Is the lady who's coming to help with the house able to be there all day while you're at work? You mentioned that she was willing to help with the boys too if your wife asked for help, but I want to point out that your wife may not be capable right now of asking her for help, so it's important to gently find out if having an extra pair of hands to help with them too would also take some of the stress off of her. I mentioned in your original post that our best friend has a wife with severe PPD and bipolar disorder, and like you, he had to work, so he added cameras at home after talking to his wife and her psychiatrist about it. He was able to keep an eye on things at home during the workday and could call his wife to check in with her or leave work if he noticed that she was really struggling or wasn't being responsive to their son. It also made her feel less alone during the day, and that was a big relief to her. He really felt terrible about feeling like he was spying on her, but ultimately everyone agreed that it was another layer of support and safety that really needed to be there while she was having such a difficult time. He had family taking turns being with her during the day while he worked, but ultimately everyone ran out of PTO, and quitting his job and losing health benefits wasn't a feasible option. Being able to keep a concerned eye out while he worked ultimately led to him being able to respond swiftly when she had some really hard days emotionally. It's not the ideal situation, but sometimes you have to use the tools you have to work with to keep things moving in a safe and positive direction. I'm glad your wife seems receptive to medication. Finding a good regimen for our friend's wife has really made a huge difference in the quality of her life. But it was a ton of trial and error until they found a combination that worked well for her. So just understand it may take time to find the right meds to help her start feeling better and to help her body and mind by boosting things like serotonin. All in all, it sounds like you're doing what you can to be there for her now, but understand there was a whole year where she felt alone and hopeless without your emotional support, and even if you didn't realize what was happening, she's still gonna have feelings about that, which may include anger. Again, just be patient with her and with yourself, and try to remind her and yourself that you're going to take things one day at a time for now and focus on getting through each new day the very best you both can together. I'll continue to keep you both in my thoughts of health and healing, and I'm sending lots of invisible hugs to all of you. Take care. User Neutral Reason said, I'm appalled that the doctors didn't mention it before they leave the hospital. My doctor specifically told my husband, and she said, for example, not showering. He said, that would be a big red flag about her. Thank God it didn't happen to me. OP, I wish you the best of luck to you and your family. Under this comment, OP said the following. Thank you. I wish the doctors or nurses mentioned anything to us. I think they were rushing to get her out of her room because there was another person waiting in that room with twins who didn't need NICU time. So her discharge in general felt very rushed. They didn't explain much to us, just handed her paperwork and said to look for signs of more infections and sent her to me in the NICU with our boys. The hospital was not great, but it was the closest one to our home. User ARTiger20 said, I think your wife resents you too. You've taken a good first step to making things better. It's going to be a very long, hard road, but you can do it. I think you're being very mature about her emotional affair. You're absolutely right on that. It's likely the reason she still exists in this world. The way she showed you and blocked everything is a pretty good indicator that she wasn't invested in it for the other person, but for her own sanity. Seeing it as the lifeline it likely was is a giant leap towards getting her better. I know in your other post you talked about her doing nothing all day and then explained yourself. Please keep on yourself with that. For some reason, it's extremely easy for the working parent to be blind to how hard it is to be the SAH parent. Don't let yourself fall into that trap. She very likely works harder than you, and I saw that you have a physical hard job. Don't forget your own mental health in all this. There's the question of why you didn't see something was extremely wrong. That's some selfishness there, and I know you admit that. Now you've got to work through it. There's going to be guilt to deal with, anger, jealousy, and basically a lot of emotions that many people simply aren't equipped to deal with. Take care, OP. It isn't going to be easy, but you can do it. Baby steps. User Dark Mode Knows Wind said, depression is no excuse for cheating. Under this comment, OP said, in any other scenario I would agree, but I think PPD has some exceptions. My wife hasn't been the same since she gave birth to our twin boys. She has been a shadow of her former self, and I am kind of thinking the affair is what has kept her alive in some sense because she had someone looking out for her when I didn't realize something was wrong, outside of being selfish and thinking I was the sole problem. So after reading the comments under this update, pretty much every single one that said something similar to what I said earlier was massively downvoted. This really interested me because I didn't think the concept of looking down on an affair due to depression was that bad. I do think that OP is very kind for absolutely not holding any grudges against his wife. That's certainly not something I would be capable of. I would of course be understanding and help my partner through something like PPD. But if I were to learn that she had an affair on top of all of the other stuff that OP shared, I can say with 99% certainty that I would be incredibly disappointed. But again, it seems that this entire comment thread is against that kind of opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Some have said that it's a matter of maturity, but I'm not sure. Keep in mind, OP said that his wife probably had PPD for like over a year. But something I think we can all agree on is that the medical professionals really f***ed up here. OP said that he had no idea what PPD was prior to making his Reddit post. The doctors should have informed him and his wife that PPD may be an issue, and if she starts showing signs of PPD, to get her medication and professional help. About a month later, OP gave us another update, this one being titled, How to Care for Twin Toddlers as a Single Dad. Edit, I have posted in the subreddit twice before regarding my situation if anyone wants context to this. I honestly don't have the energy to answer questions in my messages or in the comments. This is going to be very jumbled and might not make sense. My mind is everywhere right now. I went to work 2 days ago only for 4 hours because I had booked a flight for my wife and our twin boys that evening to go to northern Washington state to look at houses with our realtor. I had packed everyone's suitcases the night before and I was so excited to take the trip. I took a week off work and planned to take us up the Space Needle and explore the ocean up there as we have never seen the ocean before. I got home from work that afternoon and my wife was gone. My coworker's wife was there by herself, crying and trying to care for my boys, who were also crying. When I asked her where my wife was and if she was okay, she told me my wife left a folder in our room and that she was gone. I of course called her, but it said, the number you are trying to reach is inactive or unavailable, or some crap along those lines. The folder had divorce papers, some already signed by her. She left a note and basically explained what was happening and what she did. She left me for the man she had an affair with. I guess he was an old co-worker of hers. She fell in love and didn't want me anymore. She asked for 25% custody of the kids and left her number for her lawyer. What the f*** is 25% custody? Weekends only, every other weekend? She asked that I didn't try to call or text her as she has a new phone number. I don't know what I did wrong anymore. We were, I thought, on the right track. We started marriage counseling. We were going on dates regularly, communicating, laughing, and enjoying each other. I thought everything was starting to improve. She was smiling and laughing so much more. She seemed genuinely happier. She was even playing with our boys, something she never did before. How does someone seem so much better and then turn around to do this? I know I had messed up before. I neglected her and ignored all the red flags in her mental health. I acknowledged them and took full accountability. I told her it was all my fault, and I know it is. She has every right to leave me, but why did she pretend to be happy if she wasn't? If she wanted a divorce, why didn't she ask? I told her if that was what she needed and wanted, we could, but I thought we had something to fight for, and she agreed with me. She told me she didn't want a divorce. She said she wanted to grow old and get married. She wanted to be with me. Now she doesn't. She says she has never been happy with me, that she felt forced to have kids when she didn't want any. I never forced her. I asked one time, and when she declined, I kept to myself. I was okay not having kids if she didn't want to go through having them. I was never going to force her into anything. I loved and respected her wishes, and I will respect her wishes now. In her note, she even asked me to Venmo her money to start her off. I sent it to her. I know she will need money for her prescriptions and for food, but I am so heartbroken and honestly pissed off. I am so mad. How does one even go about finding daycare? What do I need to research and look into? Do I need to look for any red flags in daycares? How much does daycare even cost for twins? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Dude, like, come on. In the last post, everyone was saying how OP was making the right decision and how leaving his wife would be the worst thing he could do. Well, now she left him. I wanted to give the wife as much leeway as I could because I understand PPD sucks. She neglected the kids, she cheated on OP, and then she blamed her self-harm on OP, and she has the audacity to demand some level of custody. How can anybody support this woman at this point? At what point do we cut off the excuse of her having PPD? This sucks so much for OP. 99% of people in the world, myself included, would not have had the patience to put up with everything that his wife was dishing out. Yet she spat in his face and served him divorce papers. Actually, scratch that. She couldn't even spit on OP's face in person. She had to leave and spat in his home in the form of those divorce papers. User AMDunn4093 said, "So I might get some hate for bringing this up, but how long was she having an affair for? I think my first step would be to make sure those are your kids. Secondly, I would contact a divorce lawyer and explain things. As far as daycares, I would physically go tour them before deciding. I'm so sorry that she blindsided you like this. Are you still planning on moving and trying for a fresh start? I have lived in northern Washington state my whole life and love it here. Highly recommend Skagit County. Good luck." Under this comment, OP said she started talking to him either shortly before she gave birth or right after, so probably a little over a year. I honestly am not sure I can right now. I really want to. The school system by us has incredibly low ratings, and having grown up in that school system, I know teachers and students don't care about education. Kids are there because they legally have to, and teachers are there for paychecks. I only passed high school because I just asked my teachers for good grades. But right now, I don't know how I would travel across the US alone with twin infants. I don't have anyone else. And if we do partial custody, I would need permission to move, wouldn't I? Unless that's just something that happens in movies and TV shows. After that post, OP disappeared for several months before making a post titled, "My ex-wife is stalking me." I posted some months ago about my wife Amy and our twin sons. I was asking for advice on her behaviors, which turned out to be postpartum depression. She and I started therapy, and then she told me she had been having an affair for months and left me for that affair partner. It's been a few months now, and just as things started dying down, my wife shows up at my doorstep. This was on Monday. I legally had to give her our new address, and since we had moved from Texas to Washington, I didn't expect her to come up here. I knew she had been stalking me, not full-on creepy stalking, but she was checking out my Instagram stories on random accounts. I had her blocked. She would message me on these accounts to brag about her new life. She would talk about how good sex is with whatever STD-ridden guy she was with that week. She would send photos of herself in different beds, doing various inappropriate acts with different people. She would send photos of dime bags and booze bottles. Whatever she could send, she did, no matter how many accounts I blocked. 2 weeks ago, I just deleted my Instagram because I was fed up, and I guess she took it upon herself to show up in person to harass me. I saw her first on my doorbell camera as I was not home and my nanny was there. She looked like she was high or something, picking at her face, and she looked like a twig. She had lost so much more weight than I thought. I told my nanny not to open the door and to ignore her. I had to leave work early to get home to convince her to leave. She said she was there to pick up our boys and started accusing me of abusing them or beating them, and said she had proof of whatever she was convinced I was doing. She told me she had to convince her boyfriend to drive her to Washington just to grab the kids. She didn't even have car seats in his car for them. His back seats were full of bottles, cans, just garbage. I didn't even know how to react to her nonsense, so I called the cops and had her removed from the property. I just don't know what to do anymore. She has nothing in Texas, so I'm sure she's going to find some shelter or tent to camp out in nearby so she can come harass me. I doubt I can get a restraining order, and I spent all my money buying this house. My boys don't deserve to be forced to go through this. They are only a year old, but I don't want this for them. I don't want her around as they grow up. I don't want them to see who she has become because she has never been like this. She used to be so sweet, funny, and loving. She always had a smile on her face, and yeah, she was a little crazy from her trauma, but that crazy was nothing compared to whatever she is now. The Amy I knew would never touch hard substances. She barely drank. She hated the idea of sleeping around. Now she's a drug addict and homeless. Do I get a wellness check on her? Do I try to fight for a restraining order? I don't know what to do anymore. I want to give some long commentary here, but honestly, I don't even know what to say at this point. User More Like Guidelines said, "OP, I am a lawyer. I am not your lawyer, and this is really not legal advice. You need to get a lawyer like yesterday. And I mean a good lawyer. I had a client who dealt with a very similar situation to yours. We got emergency custody and an RO that extended to his children. This argument is about the children's best interest, and she is a danger to them. And her being a danger to you, their primary caretaker, is also a danger to your children. A good attorney will be able to help with this. The debt debt you take on for a good attorney will be well worth the price for your peace of mind and the safety of your children. And who knows, if you do get the RO and your wife breaks it, you may be able to get her arrested and she can finally detox from whatever substances she's on. Good luck. User FluffyLotus606 said, "It sucks that giving addresses is always mandatory because it's not always the safest route. My stepkid's bio mom literally tried to kill them and the judge wouldn't completely stop visitation, and we had to share address info when we moved. A wellness check may work in your favor to prove she's not right, but if she's on drugs, it won't be long before the Narcan calls start rolling in. Record your doorbell videos and download them in case she tries to break it one day. I'd still file every police report possible, try to get an RO, and do my best to afford an attorney. Most will do a free consultation. It might seem like a lot, but it won't be when you look back and she burns your house down, gets your kids taken by CPS for false sexual abuse claims, also happened with my stepkids, or ends up hurting your kids or using them for drug money. Do not underestimate crazy. You will regret it. For your kids' sake, treat this as the highest threat level possible." User Nana Holly said, "I read the previous post and the comments on this one. No one seems to have asked who is the man she's with. From what you've said, it certainly seems like she's gone down the drug abyss, and if he's with her, he's dangerous too. He thinks there are drugs or money at the end of this road trip. He may have warrants. She might have warrants too. You had the police respond to your house. Get the police report and find out who he is. Be safe. As everyone else has said, get a lawyer ASAP. Put the guilt behind you. Take care of yourself and your babies. You seem like a good person and we are all wishing you the best." Under this comment, OP said the following: "The man she is with now isn't the man she was having a long-term affair with. She has been with no less than a dozen men since the original affair partner. He was her old co-worker. I'm assuming he dumped her when she started going off the deep end and she resorted to drugs. I honestly have zero idea.